Hello. I thought I'd make a video today. It's been a while since I put up a video on the YouTube channel. In light of the Jake Paul Mike Tyson fight tonight, I thought I'd put up a video about fighting and give you my predictions. But first, I get some questions every so often about my fight career, especially when people find out I'm fighting, and I thought I'd answer some of those questions. And if you're familiar with the Midwest shoot fighting scene, especially from the early 2000s on, from the MCC and all the events at their XKK, stuff like that that was going on. You'll probably hear some familiar names. Might be interesting to you. So I'd answer some questions. Let's get right to it. A lot of times I get asked, who is the hardest hitting guy I've ever fought or trained with? And that's the categories I'll put this in today: people I fought and people I trained with. One of the hardest hits I've ever taken in training was by a guy named Aaron Quaker. Not a lot of you probably know who he is. I think he only had one amateur fight, one or two. But he was a former offensive lineman with the Iowa Hawkeyes, and he's about 6'3", 6'5", 320 pounds. So he can bring a lot of force into his punch. And I just happened to step right in front of one of those right before the bell went off, and I felt it. I felt like my face was caved in, and I went back to my corner. And my cornerman goes, "Wow, you okay?" I wasn't sure I was. Because my face still there. It feels like I've been pushed in. Aaron, being the gentleman he was concerned, but we continued on the next round. Back in those days, we did 3 5-minute rounds till somebody was knocked out or quit or tapped out or whatever, and those were with 16-ounce boxing gloves. So mind you, that was a hard shot I took there. I don't think I got concussion from that. When you're training, some guys hit hard, some don't mean to. I remember training with a guy named Kevin Burns. Many of you have heard of him. Back in the early days when he was getting ready to fight Josh Neer, I think, down at the Toad Holler, he came up and trained with us, and we put on these cheap little Taekwondo foam type fingerless gloves. And I said, let's go 50%. And he whacked me, and I'm like, dude, is that 50? And he goes, that's my 50. And I'm like, yeah, but you go 10, and I go 90, we'll get to 100 that way. Boy, he's got a live hands. The guy hits hard. He was one of the guys that hit hard. John Halverson was the guy that hit hard, had a great left hook, hit me on the chin, dazed me a few times in training. Josh Neer was another guy that many of you might be familiar with, fought in several UFCs. John Halverson fought in the UFC as well. And Kevin Burns, all those guys have fought in the UFC. But Josh Neer, if you ever looked up a fighter in the encyclopedia, it should be a picture of that guy. He's born to fight, and boy, he could hit hard. Another guy I've never heard of is Brad Huddleston. Hit hard. A lot of guys hit hard. Danny Anderson, my favorite training partner of all times. I've done million rounds with him, and he hits hard. In a fight, my hardest puncher, I try to avoid getting hit hard in fights, but a guy named Evan Marks knocked me out. I think in the first round, he was ground and pounding me, and they stood us up. I think he must have dazed me because I wasn't really coherent. I walked right at him and right into a straight blast. I didn't go to sleep, but I didn't know where the hell I was. I didn't even know what year it was. I think it was 2007, and I thought it was 1997. And it took a little bit for me to get my eggs unscrambled for that one. But that was a eye-opening experience to get knocked out. Another guy that hit hard that I fought was Jesse Sanders. Jesse Sanders won a couple tough man contests and was a very good striker. I think he'd done some pro boxing. And when we fought each other, I think he was 6-0 and I was 8-0. And he fought at 185, I fought at 170, and our opponents fell through, so the promoter matched us against each other, and I didn't want to fight him. But I was offered one lump sum, win or lose, so I took it, and boy, he hit me with a left hook, felt like a ball peen hammer right to my forehead. And it's a good thing he jerked my head back because he followed it with a right uppercut and probably took my jaw off. But that was a hard shot. I can remember that was a pretty hard one. We made it through that one. I think I won that one in like 53 seconds with an arm bar. But people, in relation to that, is who's the hardest kickers. And training-wise, I don't know if any of you have ever seen Doug Owens kick. But that guy, when he kicks a bag, it's like somebody took a baseball bat to the bag. And Doug doesn't do a whole lot of stand-up training, just innate ability to kick hard. In training, guys that kicked hard, Elvis Matacek was a hard kicker. Well, you felt it when you got kicked. And he tore my MCL once with one of his kicks. He was just brutal with it. Joe Bramer was just so technical. I don't know if many of you are. He fought in the UFC as well. Elvis fought in the UFC. Joe was so technical and knew how to lay it in, and it would hurt when you get kicked by that. Jaron Kleber, he used to spar with us a lot at Des Moines Jiu-Jitsu. Did some Muay Thai fights, and he could kick pretty hard. He could hurt. Mikey Van Meer was, you look at him, you wouldn't think he kicks hard, but he's a pretty hard kicker. He knocked me out with a kick once, kicked me in the neck. As far as fighting, I tried not to take too many, again, when you're in the strike, I'm a grappler, so I didn't try to stand with guys too much, but one of the guys that really beat the hell out of my legs was Bryce Teeger. My first loss, I was 12-0, and we fought each other at 155, and boy, he just brutalized my legs. I could barely walk out of the cage after that fight. And then Doug Owens, or not Doug Owens, Doug Jenkins also brutalized my legs. So, those were 3-round wars usually, and you're going to accumulate some damage when those happen. The hardest knee that I ever took was probably a guy named Mark Stoddard. Mark, a super nice guy, kneed me in the mouth and bent my teeth back. My 2 front teeth were bent back. And when between rounds, I took my mouthpiece out, I was blood, and I could feel my teeth were loose. And I was kind of incoherent after that. I don't remember too much. I think he choked me out in the second round after that. Mark was a great guy. Good with those knees, man. He's brutal with them. Hardest elbows, a guy named Steve Mann took me down right away and just elbowed my head to Bolivia. I mean, he just obliterated me. I had to get a lot of stitches after that. That kind of goes the other way. Who's the most durable guys that you've trained with? Josh Neer, you could hit that guy as hard as you want. Again, he isn't going anywhere. He's staying right there. He's hard to hurt. And you go with these guys, some of these guys are just, you end up going toe-to-toe with them because they'll stand right in front of you. Chris Mickle was famous for that. Timmy Gorman, Teddy Worthington. A lot of these guys would just stand in front of you and take shots. Nick Walker. Many of you don't remember Nick Walker, but he used to come out to Country Boy by John Denver or whatever. And but he couldn't see. So he had to be able to take a shot. So he was very good at taking shots. Jeremiah Deaver, man, you stand in front of that guy, he'll stand in front of you all day and trade punches with you. You can't hurt him. You hit him with a body shot, he might make noise, but he's going to let you know he's there all day. Justin Morrison, I remember kicking him in the head once and breaking his teeth, and he kept coming. There are a lot of tough guys out there. And I can always point to Danny Anderson as well. It's just, Dan, if you're watching this, you're in all these categories. Let's see, best submission guy. Everybody wants to know who's the best submission guy. Chris David, it comes to mind right away. Black belt jiu-jitsu, and he's just long and lean, and nowadays he's so strong. It's just, if I curl up in a fetal position and just try not to get submitted when I was rolling with him towards the end, he was just so good. In the early days, Doug Owens was one of the guys that just, he had so many unique ways of submitting you, and he brought other people with him that were so good. Mark Jaquith, many of you probably not familiar with who Mark Jaquith was, and fought Dan Severn and some of those guys. Mark Jaquith was a great wrestler, and Greg Halser, I think he's a black belt, and he wrestled at Warburg. Real good submissions. I learned what a hip lock was. Those guys would put them on you, hurt you. And later on when I was doing MMA, I focused more on that instead of submissions. But guys like T.J. O'Brien would great. I think he's got the most triangles in history, wins. And he's fought in the UFC. He was so good at it, long and lean, 6'4", and fought at 155, I think. And he was so good at that. What am I thinking? And so, for a fighting wise, I try not to get submitted. Mark Stoddard was really good. He submitted me. Anything I tried to submit him with, he got out of. Doug Jenkins also was able to really scrappy and get out of my holds that I was trying to do. Eric Irvin was another guy, just fantastic wrestler, and any kind of submission I tried to put on him, he was really good about getting out of it. So those guys were pretty technical, and I think Eric Irvin's done pretty well in NAGA, the submission tournament stuff. When it comes to like the best strikers, I trained a lot of good strikers. Some of the early days, Brett Feely. A lot of people don't know who Brett Feely is, but he was one of Pat Militich's kickboxing trainers, and we trained a lot with him. Josh Neer again. Victor Marino was an amazing striker, still is to this day. Ben Crowder, I put some rounds in with him, not a whole lot, but a few, and he's got such good hands, so technical, very good. Donovan Carbonet was a really good kickboxer that made it into One Jiu-Jitsu Academy. Just he'd sweep your legs out from underneath you so easily. And one of the best ones I trained with Jimmy Crawford. If many of you are familiar with Iowa boxing, and I think he was training partners with Roy Jones and things like that. It was fun to be getting. It was fun to get rounds in with him as well. Paul Bird was a good striker. Brandon Anderson. Many of you don't know who he is probably, but Brandon Anderson was so technical, and he's a big guy, and he's hard to hurt. Just a great training partner. So fortunate to have all these guys, the experiences I had with these guys. When it comes to takedowns, I had some great takedown guys to train with. Anthony Perselli was a national Masters champion. I think he wrestled at Iowa State, and a teacher there in Des Moines at the Perselli Academy or whatever it is. I can't remember what the name of the gym is, but Anthony was a beast. My own Dan Anderson, my own buddy, he was very good at takedown. Anytime he wanted to take you down, he did. Mikey Van Meer, I had those guys to train with. Mikey was a rolling ball of butcher knives. I always said if he wanted to take you down, he could. Tyrone Roberts would come down and train with every so often. Tyrone's a UFC vet, I think he's a state champion wrestler. He's very good. Mark Bear would come down as well for the Meskwaki Indian tribes. Those guys were beasts, and Mark Bear was such a great athlete, capable of doing so many different things. Dennis Reed was a very good wrestler when it came to fighting. Took me down really easy. I'd say the guy was best at the fastest shoot I ever saw that I trained with was a guy named Charlie Bam Bam Blanchard. I think he made it to the Ultimate Fighting Show or something, but and trained with Chuck Liddell. But Bam Bam would blink and you'd be on your back. He was so fast. I think he was a highly recruited out of high school, and he trained at Obaki's gym when I lived in Jacksonville. I got to train with him quite a bit. Really good guy, great wrestler. The strongest guys. Everybody wants to know who's the strongest. So again, Aaron Quaker, the guy that I talked about earlier, hitting me so hard. Again, I think he held bench press record and squat records for the state of Iowa for a while. He was a beast. Lance Hood, many of you probably remember that name from back in the day. Lance Hood was just, he had strength from his soul or something. He was very strong. Brett Feely was strong. Brian Sykes, God rest his soul, was a very strong guy. John Sable was one of my buddies I trained with in Ankeny when I taught up there. John Sable was 240 and built like a shit brick house. He could bench press a Buick. Levi Hansom's another big guy. I don't know, he's 6'3", 6'4", 300 pounds, 280, whatever he was. Nick Rouse, a lot of people are familiar with Nick Rouse when he owned a gym. For his weight, super strong. CrossFit nut, could do all kinds of chin-ups and body strength stuff. He was amazing. Vern Jefferson was strong. We used to call him Vice Grip Vern because he'd grab a hold of your wrist and you were pretty much locked down. You weren't getting out of his grip. Andre Roberts, the Chief, from Meskwaki up there as well. Super strong. If you wanted to get a submission, you weren't going to deny him. He was huge. If you know who Andre Roberts is, I think he's 6'3" and at one time around 400 pounds. So he was a massive man and a super good guy. The meanest, the guys. Well, when fighting wise, I'd say Steve Mann was pretty mean when he elbowed me in the head 11 billion times, and I really didn't chat with him too much before or after. A lot of the guys I trained or fought with were pretty good sportsmen, and not to say Steve wasn't, but I didn't get to know him at all. He was walked into the cage the first time I really saw him, and the last time I saw him, and they got the fight was stopped, or I got choked. I can't remember. I got elbowed in the head so many times. I think they were calling him the surgeon, and now I know why, because you cut your head up so much. Training wise, the meanest guy was probably Rick Tasler. Rick Tasler's he's angry man. He'll bite you, and nobody likes that. Yeah, I think he's really upset because he's so ugly. That's probably why he bites people. And the rabies. Nicest guys, Reese Hernandez comes to mind when I fought him up in Minnesota, and right at the weigh-ins, he just such a we hit it right off. It was like, hey, this guy could be a good friend. And after fight party, I went to his after fight party. We just struck up a friendship, and we converse every so often. And he's a good guy. Another one was Bryce Teager. Both these guys I lost to, of course. Bryce Teager was a super nice guy, good sportsman. Always said complimentary things to me afterwards, even though they kicked my ass. Doug Jenkins, another one. Doug and I fought twice, and he won and I won. And we've decided, we liked each other too much not to fight each other a third time. Another super nice guy is Matt Ryder. He doesn't get enough credit for just super nice guy. Helps people as much as he can. Soft-spoken, good dude. Levi Foster, if any of you know, I've trained with him, super nice kid. There's probably a lot of people I'm not thinking of right off the top of my head. Sometimes I get asked, had I ever had fights where I thought I'd lose? And yeah, I had a couple fights. Every fight I lost, I thought I'd win. And every fight I won, I thought I'd win, except for two. And one of them was against Jesse Sanders. In that fight, I didn't think I'd beat him. And I didn't really want to fight him, but I went ahead with it anyway, and somehow got the win. And like I said, if Jesse and I fought 10 times, he'd probably win 9, but that night was just mine. And the second fight with Doug Jenkins, I didn't want that fight. He beat me once, and it was brutal. My face looked like it went through a windshield after that, and I didn't want to fight him again. I was like, nah. But the promoter talked me into it. The promoter at that time was John Halverson. And he goes, hey, everybody wants to see this fight. It was fight of the year the first time. Come on, you got to do it. I said, all right, well, I'll fight him. But I just know I can't beat him. I'm going to lose. But if you promise me you'll just get me on the next card. Because I didn't want to be sitting on a loss for any period of time. I said, well, I'll fight this fight. I'll get my ass kicked. And then just put me on the next card. Hopefully I'll get a win then. You don't want to sit on a loss for too long. But somehow I won the second fight. My strategy changed. Danny Anderson helped me with that again, my corner. We just fought at a different pace and waited for openings and tried to be patient and seize a moment if he made a mistake or if I could stun him. And it worked out that way. We got the tap out in the second round. Last one. Who's got the fastest hands? So many guys snap it into you. Johnny Case, I remember hitting you with a 3-punch combo. I've only got to spar with him a few times. Ricky Glenn is another guy. Both those guys are fast hands, reach out and touch you. So does Victor Marino, he's got fast hands. John Alverson, back in the day, had fast hands. And many people aren't familiar with this guy, Jason Hookey. Had a lot of amateur boxing events, around 70, 80 amateur boxing fights. And he was very fast hands, really quick jab. One guy that's got really fast hands for his size, Brandon Anderson. Could put it on you, but maybe I just didn't slip him very well. But that's all I'm going to go with today. It looks like this video is kind of long, so I might have to break it up. As far as my prediction for the fight tonight, Tyson is 58. My heart goes out to older fighters since I fought till I was 53. So I'm kind of rooting for him. I was never a huge Tyson fan, but I liked Evander Holyfield. But I'm kind of rooting for him because he's an old man. I don't have anything against Jake Paul. A lot of people seem to hate him. I think he's obnoxious on purpose just to get fights. It's kind of clever how he's doing it, how he's fighting has-beens, never-wases, or things like that, and becoming very wealthy off of it. I think what he's going to do is just hug. It's 8 2-minute rounds with 14-ounce gloves. This favors Jake Paul, and I don't think it'll give Tyson much time to work, to burst in. And I think Jake Paul's just going to grab and hug him. If you remember a fight with Tyson had with Bone Crusher Smith, everybody called him Bone Hugger Smith. I think that's what we're going to see in this fight tonight, is Jake Paul just hugging him, trying to wear him down because he's bigger. He's going to lean on him, put his weight on him, try to wear Tyson down, and it'll probably go to decision. And I think it's going to be a boring fight. That's my initial thought. I could be wrong. Tyson could catch him and definitely knock him out. I kind of rooting for that. I kind of like to see that. But I like I said, I don't hate Jake Paul. I don't despise him or anything. But I hope it's a good fight. But my belief is it's going to be pretty boring. He's just going to grab him, hold him, and try to win a decision. And that's it out of the Warfrog studio here. You guys have a great rest of the day.